This call is now being recorded.
Did you hear that?
I did.
Now I want to see if I can switch on the video. I don't know whether I can or not, but it's okay.
You don't need to. You don't need to be on video.
But I would like to talk to you. But
okay, well, I can turn mine on if you turn yours on.
Thank you for being up for this, even though I didn't really exactly ask you if you were up for it.
Oh, absolutely. I am up for
taking 15 minutes to do another Zoom in a day that is probably
on my personal computer though, so that's good. I unfortunately really do only have 15 minutes.
No, that's perfect.
Okay, shoot.
Okay, so what we're trying to do is just talk to all of our family members a little bit about what it's been like in this first year of Aadi and thoughts and impressions. The bottom left, but it's okay.
Bottom or left?
There's like a microphone and then there's like a little camera icon.
Wait. Yeah, I know how to do it now.
Don't Think Twice is a podcast on intimate friendship. Amrita and Andrew are writers and creative collaborators, platonic life partners, and parents to a 1-year-old son. Our friend Marina Weiss, a poet and clinical psychologist, hosts these conversations. Today we talk family dynamics by having one-on-one phone conversations with our parents and siblings, and then sat down with Marina to hash it all out. Our cast of characters today are Amrita's mother, Janaki.
Yeah, I was so thrilled that I was there when I could see him when he was a few minutes old. Because you said I should come only after the baby is born. Why you said that, I don't know. But the fate or God decided that I needed to be there.
Andrew's brother, Adam.
Question is, what's your general impression about things have been this first year of Aadi's life? I am blown away. You are raising him in such a unique way in that you get to spend a lot of time with him, and you spend more time with your child than I think any parent I've ever known.
Amrita's father, Vijay.
Okay, I can't summarize the whole year, but I can tell you everybody was delighted. Of course, I also was delighted. And for me, holding a baby boy was the first experience in my life. I've always held baby girls, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course, he was a complete charmer with his smile and everything. So he's a sweetheart.
Andrew's mother, Rhonda.
A tremendous blessing in that I have been able to observe my own child as a father and enjoyed seeing that they both, in my view, are better parents than I ever was.
And Amrita's sister, Aparna.
I think it's been a really fun year to watch Aadi grow and watch you as a mother, which has been really fun. And I think, especially because you're so much younger than I am, like it's kind of like my baby sister's baby. So I've been very a little schmoopy about that. And it's been really fun to watch.
How was it like hearing back these conversations with your families together?
I was waiting for the ball to drop. Like when we're asking our families to answer questions in the real world, I guess if I was in a traditional relationship, we would never ask our families these questions. And so never put ourselves in a position to have like them answer in whatever way they wanted to, with the potential of it being
Yeah, and that's a good
bad.
point.
Just appreciating how the practice is like we basically set up some sort of therapeutic exercise that asks our family to potentially reveal things that they would never say without the proper space being formed. These are just, there would be concerns regardless of what our family situation is. If we were a traditional couple, very well, family would have opinions.
What was it like to talk to Janaki? Because she was kind of running in with a lot of anxiety. She loves you a lot, and her way of showing that love is that she wants to protect you.
When I was thinking about it, I'm worried about the future. The tenuous relationship between you and Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
So
what do you think makes it tenuous?
What if you don't like him or he doesn't like you, and then what happens to the kids?
Can you explain why do you think it's tenuous?
Because there is no legal bonding. Especially in California and stuff, you can take the husband to the cleaners if you.
So it's more of like a financial issue that you're concerned about.
No, even emotional, so if you're just stranded with 2 kids, it'll be difficult, right? I worry about, these people going in their own way, finding their own lovers and all. I'm a little bit
Not sure
not
how that would
okay
work. Yeah.
because the kids will be confused. I know you and Andrew are really good friends, and so
No,
we
I know,
have
but I'm just
lasted
saying,
a long time.
yeah, and we've been friends longer than many people have been married before they have kids. But
Yeah,
being married is no guarantee
guarantee. I
of
agree.
the future. You're going to be
That's true.
together.
Actually, it is. It may be. I agree. Sometimes it may even be worse because the expectations become higher. Here, you know your boundaries. I think right. You don't expect things that are impossible to satisfy.
I would say two things to that. First of all, none of the concerns that she raised are like brand new.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard all of those before. And the other part of it, I will take personal responsibility for. I'm sure that there have been times when my mom may have raised a similar concern in the past, and I probably just was like, it's fine, mom. And maybe I didn't take the time to just say like, this is why it's fine. This is how much money we've saved and set aside. This is how we've planned. But I do think a little bit of my mom's concern about like, oh, what if you leave? What if Andrew leaves and you're stuck with 2 kids? Is like a really like very gender specific idea that if someone's going to leave this scenario, it would be you. And that then necessarily I would be the one that was stuck with 2 kids.
It could just as well be you.
It could just as well be me, and you're saddled with 2 kids.
You really offered her a lot of warmth, which was helpful, I think, also for her anxiety. She's also very quick-witted, and she's kind of jumping between ideas in this beautiful way. And there is a lot of like beautiful goodwill.
But yours really, really good. And you and Andrew are good parents. It's really good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And he's very well cared for. So now I'm worried that he's going to be so used to you guys that he won't want to go to a school. And I think he needs to go to school in order to learn to speak.
I think it's also important to emphasize just for us that it seemed like Janaki was very concerned that you guys are just friends and there are no expectations. Like she has not internalized this, and it might make sense to give yourself some kind of additional language that you can also offer her. Because I heard Adam say life partners.
She's absolutely delightful. I think she is. I don't think you could have picked a better partner for multiple reasons. I think you guys are like the dream team.
I heard Aparna say life partners. I don't think that means enough to her, or maybe that's not language that has been said to her enough.
I think like the relationship with Andrew, I didn't really expect that to feel differently about him.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like it just feels different when he's the parent of my nephew than, oh yeah, it's still important to be your best friend and your life partner, but there's an added element there where the families are blended in a different way. So like having the vocabulary for it and how much needs to be discussed, and maybe it doesn't.
Which your dad kind of highlighted. He was like, what if there's dissension? And then you told me about these other things, so now I'm at ease.
I think I've already talked to you about, how you would handle if dissension occurred, in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, well, that's all taken care of.
Sounds very much like I really brushed you off when you asked that question before.
No, you gave me the details, that I think we have worked it out, everything is written and stuff. Yeah.
The other thing he said about like the family structure thing that you'll find funny is that he was like, well, I'm a reproductive biologist. I've seen it all.
I'm in a reproduction field. People have had, surrogate mothers, donor sperm, you name it. I mean, there's lots of things have happened.
Yeah.
And like when you have a child, that is your focus and your duty is to that family.
When this happens, the tying force should be the baby. But for me, so if you have a sweetheart like Aadi, there's no way you can, because it is your, not duty. I mean, it was your fault, if you want. I want to say that, he was born to you, right? He didn't choose Amrita and Andrew's house, right?
Yeah.
So you have an entire major responsibility.
What I think actually that he and I are on the same page in the sense that it's not necessarily the marriage or the legal paperwork that creates the commitment. It's your decision to be committed to like raising this child, or that this kid is the priority, and that's what is the binding element in the relationship.
I have this fantasy now of coming to your family with like a PowerPoint presentation that's like, children of queer families do better. Children of older families, like older parents, do better because...
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because, I mean...
If you could present us with that PowerPoint,
yeah,
that'd be great.
When parents are just like mature people in their 30s who have made other decisions, they're more likely to be financially stable, they're more likely to be emotionally stable, they're more likely to have chosen a partner who really fits with their values and is like ready to do this with them. So that, all adds up to this likelihood that things are going to be a supportive environment. And similarly for queer families, like queer families don't have accidental babies in the same way. They have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and go through humiliating psychiatric experiments and like talk to lots of people and convince them that they're worthy of this experience. So it's harder to do this in a unintentional
into casual
way.
Or unconsidered way. Your mom feels like this very emotional connection about the idea of the baby being this melding of the families, and he is, and I think that's really lovely. That's a really lovely sentiment.
And I've said from the very beginning that one of the most wonderful gifts to have grown up in Western North Carolina, in Appalachia, and in a very small world, to share a grandchild with somebody who grew up in another part of the world is just, I get very emotional about it. It is such a gift that we shared this little boy, and that our lives are forever tethered together for eternity. And it's really surprised me how much that means to me. And the story of my family and my legacy, and his, and what he carries with him, all of our history, and it's just a wonderful story, and very, very close to my heart.
But I just wanted to say, like, how lovely it made me feel to hear some of the nice things that your family said. It was really sweet, and I don't know, just appreciate that sentiment and send it back to them.
I think I was already there in love with her because you love her so much. It's part of it, and then just because of who she is, she's just a remarkable human being, and I fell in love with her mother the very first time I met her, and so that bridge had already been built.
I knew that when you guys made your mind up to do this, it was going to be done the right way. You would not have decided to do something unless you two were going to do it the way you guys felt you could do it well.
I think everything they said was true, and I really appreciate that they do trust me, and I know that of course they care about me deeply. But there's always been a dynamic in my family where showing concern for me has never taken the form of real worry or pushing back on my decisions.
No, I right now I don't really worry about that, or or have questions about that, and I know why. Because I trust you and Amrita completely. I trust you completely with the decisions that you make. I don't question the decisions you make. I don't second guess. Feel very, very lucky that I don't have to worry about that.
Just been curious and like craved my mom being like, "Are you sure you're making the right decision?" But that's not something that would ever come out of her. There can be a little bit of distance. Sometimes it would be nice to be asked, like, "Well, do you want to be out there? Or do you need help? Can I help you?" I know the help is there if I were to ask.
Well, I think that there was a little bit of that in your brother's phone conversation where he said,
I did not know that you would be, I knew you'd be hands-on, but I did not know that you would be as vulnerable to, I think fatherhood has made you more vulnerable in a good way, more accessible.
There's probably some truth to that it has made you more vulnerable, but it has, I think, also allowed your family to view you as being a more vulnerable person, that maybe you already were that way, but they're now seeing that instead of being like the perpetually strong person who's always making the right choice, who's totally got it down. We don't need to worry about him. He's totally fine. This experience, it sounds like, I don't know if it's changed maybe the tenor of your conversations, because I know from time to time, like especially during the newborn phase, you would to text your brother or call your brother and say like, "Hey, is this thing normal?" Or like, "What did you guys do about this?" Or like, "How did you handle cloth diapers?" And turning to him as the expert in something, or saying like, "You know better about this thing," or like, I'm uncertain, allowed him to see that side of you a little bit.
So Amrita has interviewed her sister, her dad, and her mom. As I said, I interviewed our mom, and I will interview you, and that will be everyone who's interviewed for the family. So
that's a nice roundabout way to say your father is not involved.
Yeah.
I knew the answer to that already, but that's fine.
I want to know whether you feel comfortable addressing the absent conversation.
I do.
Okay.
And you're talking about my dad?
Yes.
Well, I would like to. I have not asked my dad. I've not asked to speak to my dad. So I won't say anything about my feelings about my dad. It's not fair if he wouldn't be able to respond. But we haven't had a relationship to speak of for years at this point. There are things I could guess he might say, but he's also a very surprising man. I think it's important to mention him, especially in contrast to both of our families being so supportive, my mom and brother and your family. I wouldn't want someone listening to this who didn't know us to think that there weren't people in our family who weren't supportive. And I have not spoken to my dad about having a child, and that is something that does sit with me. You know, very lucky to have the people in our lives that we do. And I've chosen not to have a person in my life for reasons.
Can I ask you to tell us a little bit about how it feels?
It feels, if I don't first remind myself who my father is, it feels really sad.
We talked about this when I was pregnant, and we haven't really returned to the subject. And I just want to reiterate that if at any point you decide that you want them to have any kind of relationship or contact, like, I'm always open to that. And I will happily take my cues from you on that. And I trust you to make the decision that you feel is best.
Thank you.
Both for yourself and for our son.
If Aadi wants to meet his granddad, I don't know.
I've heard you in our first season talk about some of the things that your dad said to you, right? And I have no knowledge of your dad outside of a few things that you've mentioned to me. So I'm really not, oriented to all of the parts of it. But my sense is that, it would be very understandable for you to not want Aadi to be exposed to negative ideas about you.
It's a matter of like, how much do I really need my son to know about my relationship with my dad? And if it's not that much, then it might be an uncomfortable day for me. But if that's what my son wants, like, that's fine. Again, this man is not violent. We're not talking about any of these like extreme things.
No. Yeah, and kids are smart enough to also be told, we may not agree with everything that Grandpa says, but
I mean, that's the part I'm going to have to really sit with, and like, how do I explain it? I don't know how you find people who have explained to their children squishy, messy dynamics, but I'm sure there are places to go.
I mean, whereas like my mother's older relatives who were anti-Semitic, like we just did not talk to them. We did not see them. We did not try. And granted, they weren't like immediate grandparents. They were, my mother's great aunt. But, we would have had opportunities if my mother had wanted to. We could have had opportunities to, go to the place in the Adirondacks, which I did not go to my entire childhood until this woman was dead.
that was part of
it. That was part of it. That was part of why it's like such a complicated place for me to go. It's like full of pictures of my mother's family, including Aunt Jean.
Well, she didn't create the Adirondacks and the beautiful nature.
No, and we take it back. My beautiful chosen family.
Let her have that.
My beautiful chosen family comes and plants wildflowers every year, and are like we're full of wildness and beauty, bitches.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you can't stop us.
Yes.
In returning to close the loop on what we were saying about your mom and brother, that vulnerability takes some time to develop.
The pleasure of having a kid later in life at 37 years old is that they would still have spoken about me sweetly when I was 27 or 28, but I would have been such a different parent. Mm-hmm. And when Adam says you've become more vulnerable, I think that is true. But I don't know if it would have been true 10 years ago, if I would have allowed myself that.
Yeah, and I think one of the benefits of having a baby at a time that you chose, when you had, as Aparna said, had a lot of freedom in your life previously, is that this can feel like something that's not being thrust upon you, that's not preventing you from having your youth. And there may be parts of it that, change the way that you show up in these relationships, perhaps in ways that other people haven't seen. A lot of folks have very young parents who fell into it because it was an expected milestone of their expected cultural trajectory, and not because they had done all the things they wanted in their lives.
I feel like one thing for you being someone who came to motherhood later, and like the path that you've taken, you've had a lot of freedom in your choices, and where you go, you can like travel easily. You can take this opportunity to do this exciting thing, which I think is really great. And there's going to be an element of having to like put that on pause or not doing that for a while.
There is an adjustment of like, living your life exactly as you've designed it, and at the exact rhythm that you've designed it, and then now catering to the rhythm of a tyrannical third party. So yeah, that's real, and it is something that we embarked on very deliberately. So with that,
and I think I'm ready in my life to not need to have like all of the options available to me. I don't need to have every path open, meaning that having additional children, even having him, but having another children, and that does cut down on options.
That's just life. Every decision you make that's gonna shut something else off and open up something.
What a
else.
Relief, don't you think?
Yeah.
Shutting doors.
Yeah. Too many
Yeah,
open
and then we
doors.
can, with all
So
the doors
relieving.
closed, we can lie down and take a nap.
We can lie down in the darkness.
Be cozy. We've now heard a bit about how each of our families reacted to these conversations. Let's face head-on some of the contrasts between the two. Has this changed at all how you feel about Andrew?
Not really. I mean, he still is the same person. He just goes and hides all the time. I rarely see him. So,
You think he's very private?
Yeah, but he is very good to the child, and that's all I care about.
Mm-hmm.
And he really takes care of him. He takes him for walks, all that. I like it. But otherwise, he's not, all that, what do you call it, really lovey-dovey, friendly, not like that, right? He's by himself, and most of the time I don't even see him much. So I don't think anything has changed like that. But I like him more because he's good with the baby.
Yeah. Well, I'm just curious because, since we are not married, he's not your son-in-law, but he is the father of your grandchild. So
See,
I don't think
that is the difference, I feel,
Mhm.
with Richard, even if I says anything, I can fight with him. I feel close to him. I don't feel like that. He's your friend. That's all.
Okay, so you feel like there's some level of sort of distance there because it's
Yeah,
not a
which is
marriage.
fine because that's what you guys want. What do you call it? The line, where you don't cross like that, right? You're friends, and you don't have expectations, so that's fine.
The reason that this gave me a lot of anxiety in hearing and then having these conversations is also because, like, I don't want your feelings to be heard about that at all, and so I was worried about talking.
Well, I think let's talk about that for a minute, because in that way, your mom is making that very point. If you're worried about her saying something that would hurt my feelings,
so I'm proving her point. Basically,
you're proving her point.
Yeah.
And I think it's important as part of your partnership, for you to have an open channel, even about things that might be difficult to hear.
I think it's also interesting when we get to some of the things that Aparna said about culture and cultural expectations.
Mm-hmm.
If what your mom is saying is also connected to those cultural expectations that Aparna is alluding to.
Yes, very much.
And so it's a matter of not only a commitment between us, but an expectation that she can have, wanting to understand what she can expect from me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a married couple. I think the extended family, there's not a set of rules to fall back on, oh, this is my son-in-law or this is my brother-in-law, and I have certain expectations about a role that has that name. We don't have a name exactly. Life partner, father of my nephew, but it's the relationship with us as extended family members. I think there's not as much of a rule base to fall back on. And I think I was thinking I think in our culture, when you get married, there's such an expectation of oneness in a family. In some ways, for example, I think Richard kind of knew what he was signing up for as someone marrying into our culture. Yes. That's a little different than signing up to co-parent. So I think sometimes that can be challenging because some of the assumptions we make culturally in our family about a son-in-law or brother-in-law we're not sure if you can make those same assumptions or something. Especially I think for mom, that's really hard.
Can I give you an example that I think is illustrative? Her desire for closeness. Okay, so I didn't like that Andrew told you, you don't need to feel obligated to send pictures to my mom.
Talking about my mom.
Yeah,
to be clear, talking about Rhonda.
Yes. So you told me, I don't even remember this incident, but I guess I was like, oh, I'm gonna send some pictures to your mother, and you were like, well, you don't have to do that or something, and she didn't like that.
I was thinking, what the heck, yeah.
Oh, I don't remember.
Don't feel obligated to send it to her in a medicine.
Oh, yeah. Which I think is actually kind of sweet because she wanted to feel like you were like, yeah, of course you have to send pictures to my mom.
And what I meant was, you don't have to communicate with your mom and my mom about the baby as if I can't do it.
Right. But
it's not your responsibility to keep my mom.
But I think my mom, but I do think, like, to the point of, we talk a lot about commitment to our friendship, and we talk a lot about commitment to, just commitment in our friendships, not just to each other, but like our commitment to Marina, our commitment to Jen, our commitment to our friends. And so I think it's okay to say, yeah, you have a responsibility to be in contact with the grandparents of your child. I think that'd be okay. I think that's what my mom is saying, is that she actually values that idea, that to her, I do have an obligation, or a commitment, not in a positive way, but a commitment to being like, yeah, I want to share these moments with my son's Nana.
But that was also perhaps coming from a place that's culturally bound in some ways.
Absolutely.
Around like really valuing the collective and the collective experience. And it's also, this was at a time when you had just given birth and you were beginning to breastfeed, and Andrew was trying to take things off your plate because he couldn't take either of those things off your plate.
Yeah, that is a really good example.
I just think it's an interesting point.
I think there's an added level of complexity because of the difference in culture between our family and the dominant culture too. Like a lot of the cultural norms around like boundaries and like the family unit. I don't want to speak for his family at all, because everyone has their own family culture. But I think it'd be different if he's Indian, is what I'm saying. Like, I think Indian culture has a different expectation about extended family dynamics.
I often talk about, we don't have like boundaries in my family, but that part of that is a cultural thing versus, so, like, for instance, I think, what I heard in Andrew's conversations with his mom and brother, was a theme of, I trust you and I don't need to know more.
I am not the least bit curious about your romantic relationships anymore. The only thing I care about is if the people that you're with treat your partners and your children with respect, and then they make you happy. I don't think that's it's first of all not my business, and I'm not the least bit curious about it. I trust both of you. It's not my place to tell you. I got to make my choice. I got to make my romantic choices. I don't understand why I wouldn't be interested in what yours are.
And I think in your family, that is a sign of ultimate respect, to say, it's not my business what you do. I just trust implicitly that the thing you do is going to be the right thing. And that is like the highest compliment. And in my family, if to say like, it's not my business would be a way of saying like, I don't care. Like, I don't care about you. I don't care about, I think that would come across as like a high insult in my family. And it's just interesting to see the contrast of how that's such an expression of love from your brother. And I really heard that in what he was saying. But the words themselves, if I were to say that to someone in my family, would have a completely different connotation and context.
Absolutely. And I just want to add to that like the dominant culture, as Aparna was calling it, or like white American mainstream culture, is actually the minority in the world in terms of the way that we operate with a lot of individualism and emotional distance from each other. Right?
Yeah, because it's like, but it's also like made me doubt, like, okay, maybe there are certain elements of a traditional family structure that I do want, or I do like, because I would love the idea of like, our families being blended together. And I mean, I think they are and they will be. But like, I want you to feel like you're part of my immediate family. And I would love for them to feel that way too. And I think it's so much as like, I haven't done as much like I haven't smoothed that way enough, that, in saying that's my expectation, or that's my desire.
One of the things I've heard, and please jump in and tell me if I'm being a white academic, weighing in a weird way about this, but that like folks who immigrate tend to hold on to an older representation of their cultural values. So they're living, by the values of their parents or grandparents, because that's what was real when they were last in their country of origin.
I think in general, that's true. I don't know that that's really like so accurate with my parents because they also have non-traditional marriage, and also are coming to some of their thoughts from experiencing the repercussions that they experience from having a non-traditional marriage and some of the punitive repercussions that they experienced from their families, from their parents. And it, in some arenas, continue to experience.
But also what I was hearing was an implicit comparison to the way that each of your family of origins is structured. And I think for Rhonda, it was really beautiful to hear how she sees the equity of your relationship and your beautiful capacity to show up for your child together as reparative for the ways that she felt fell short. And that was the structure that she sees in you that she really admires, right?
It has been a journey for me personally to reflect on some of the things that I regret in my own parenting and wish that I could change. And knowing that it makes me want to be a better grandparent for many, many reasons, in hopes that will somehow heal my own sorrow about the shortcomings that I had as a parent.
What my mom is talking about, everything you just said, Marina, as a woman who has been divorced 3 times, as a woman who in her life and in her family is very much used to things changing, people not staying together. And my brother has also been married twice and has children from 2 different. So my family is one that is, I think, more practiced at, the idea of marriage or some sort of official union. They really have a lived experience of that not really amounting to much at the end.
And I will go so far as to say Rhonda had an unhappy and asymmetrical relationship. This kind of equity is for her this kind of beautiful thing that she was hoping to achieve.
Yes. There's also just your decision to value what you value.
Like in our culture, if you're in a heterosexual marriage, the mother ends up by default doing the bulk of the labor. And I think it's can cause a lot of stress and resentment, even in happily married couples. Mm-hmm. But the fact that you guys had pre-negotiated certain things, I'm sure you still have to negotiate, but my impression as an observer is that it took away some of that friction or tension or...
I think I've been most surprised at how people have embraced the whole idea of family units being different, that they're not, that everybody's not in this box. I think that the people that I'm closest to have many, many questions in positive ways about how this whole family unit came to be, or just a lot of positive feedback.
My dad, also echoed some of that desire for greater closeness with Andrew that we heard earlier from my mom.
It's not a question of change, it's a question of knowing him better, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like it was X before and Y now, right? Mm-hmm. I knew Andrew, and he has come to our house and before the child was born. Yes. But now I got to know him better, and and I was impressed that he is able to handle the baby very well. So it's not changed, but I think I understand him more. And Andrew has always been very withdrawn and doesn't speak very much. So maybe I have not engaged him in a conversation that would have brought him out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, as because I have not had occasions to be. You've been with us for all the time, right? So you can't blame him for not.
It's not that I want you to change your personality or be any different than you are, but maybe you would. There would be some value for me in you verbalizing to my parents that you're glad to be a part of the family, or you want to be a part of the family, or so they're not sure where they stand because he's not making an effort. I think that's maybe neither of them said that in those words, but I think that was kind of what I was hearing.
We are asking both of our families to come along with us on this new different type of journey, and both of our families, both of our siblings live in proximity to our parents and have children in proximity. So some of what I hear from both sides of our family, I think have nothing to do with the nature of our relationship and have more to do with the proximity or the lack of proximity that we have.
I'm sorry that he's not closer so I could see him more often.
I wish that I could spend more time physically in New York with you and with Aadi.
You know, Aparna and my brother and their spouses can have that flexible touch points in both of their homes, outside of their homes, for extended periods of time or not. You and I don't have that. And so I think that's a compounding issue to what we're talking about.
And I think it's important to notice as well, like, part of your role, Amrita, and your family is to be even keeled, as your dad put it, and be collected and be, you know, managing emotions for other people.
I have never seen a mom so calm and collected. You know, the thing is, your demeanor has always been like this. So your demeanor has always been, you know, even keel, except in the mornings, right? Before your coffee.
You are different around your family. You are you, of course. You're like fully you, but to keep everyone as satisfied and happy as possible. And that is such a practiced maneuver that when you even feel like your mom's going to say something critical about me, I think you immediately go into that place where you automatically want to
make it okay.
When it's not okay for someone to say they don't like something I did or said. In a family situation, there's kind of no way around really resolving conflict or laying the groundwork for really healthy relationships without looking at it head on.
Yeah. It's laying the groundwork for the type of like intimate, like family intimacy that I think I'm realizing that I value a lot now that we're in this.
Well, I think we should talk more also just really briefly about this idea of additional children. It's so interesting, Amrita, because when I was listening to the interviews with your parents, they're gentle, like
saying
negative. Well, because I think they were also saying both.
Yeah, so this was the one that scared me. And the reason for that is, as I've already told you, you know, it's not a thing like where you go and buy a donut, right? Unless you have a compelling reason to have one more baby. I think you're fine now.
Okay, I'll take that under advisement. You know, I don't think that they would be disappointed. I think they'd be thrilled if there was another baby. But I think they were both like...
You'll notice my brother mentioned having as many kids as he would be open to me having many
10,
children.
He's available to judge at 10.
Yes.
Other children, I mean, you're asking me what I think about other children. If you're not having 10 children, then I don't know what we're talking about here, because you'll never hear me tell anybody not to have more children.
There was also this point at which she was kind of both catastrophizing and saying, like, what if this ruins your life? And then also saying, but I'm getting old, so I can only help you
This will make you laugh, Andrew, when you hear it. It's about having another child, and she's like,
what if you won't be able to manage? And
well, so wait,
what if you're taking on so much because you may not be able to do your work properly, and you don't want to give up everything and just sit because you want to have another baby.
Right.
You're ruining your life, and the kids will grow up and say bye-bye, and then you can't wait too long to...
If it's not one thing, it's the other. No,
you have to have a decision, Yeah, I'm getting old also. Now I have back pain, have knee pain, everything. I'm also getting old. Trying to help may be hard for me too. And who knows how long I'll be alive.
So a lot of kind of back and forth on like both wanting you to have another child and not wanting you to have another child?
I think it's mainly just like a resource issue, concerns about resources, but it's also personal that they know that that I've never wanted to be a stay-at-home parent, and so they wouldn't want me to land up in a scenario that they firsthand know that would not be desirable for me personally.
Well, I'm asking because I think to me it sounded like there'd been quite a shift.
I'm 30. We're both 38 now, and I think I just want to get the show on the road if we're going to do it again.
We started the whole process of having children wanting, the caveat being that we need to see what happened with our first child and how we felt about being parents.
Mm-hmm.
But the plan was always to have two.
Mm-hmm.
We both have siblings. We both value our relationships with our siblings.
I realized that some of the stuff in the end was in like
Tanglish.
So you may not have gotten like all the...
No, it was interesting because you were still speaking English.
Yeah.
And you were like, I don't really care that she thinks I'm lesbian. That's fine. I think, that also raises another question, which is like, how comfortable are your parents with queer community? Like, I meant that kind of to like float in space, not to like necessarily have like a conclusive answer here and now, right? But I think they don't have another queer son-in-law, right? And having a gay person in their family is new, and also having men in their family is new.
Nowadays, the world is, I didn't have to say, they didn't even ask. I showed Andrew, and they didn't ask anything more. So I think all you have to show is, is delightful demeanor over the photographs that you've sent. No explanation is required. No podcast is required.
Like when I explain to people how you formed a family, what their reaction is what you're asking. How many questions there's always questions, because it's not a traditional family. And so it's the same questions that gay couples had to answer each other 40 years ago or 60 years ago. It's the same question that trans people are having to answer right now. It's just something we don't normally see, so it takes a little more time. There's no way to explain it quickly. I just say my brother and his partner, because that's what you are life partners, have a kid together. And then, I'm like, he's gay, she's straight. You have to go through the whole thing. You have to explain the whole thing. But basically, I'm like, look, they're two people that wanted to have a kid, and they have a lot of love to give, and they have the resources to take care of them. And so they decided they were going to do it with each other because they love each other. And people understand that. People understand love. People understand familial love.
People were protective of you when they were asked, like, do you get questions about us?
Yeah, I think that was a nice unifying factor. That final question actually was a nice unifying factor across all of our family members.
And some people assume that he's your husband. I don't disabuse them.
Okay. I was just curious about
my chitti and all that, I try to tell them, I have told them, but they choose to ignore it. Some of them understand it, but they're still very curious, what is this, that type of thing. No, I don't let them, right? I say, my daughter has a son and I'm happy about it. Then they can't do anything. What will they say, right? But they don't, I don't give them a chance. So everybody's fine.
Just to clarify, she said that some of my like oldest great aunts, they don't understand. She's like, and I've explained it to them that I've, and they're like, oh, okay, right. So her husband, she's like 94. So it just doesn't compute.
Or maybe it does compute.
Or maybe it does.
And that's it still falls into the definition of husband.
Yeah.
And I think that you guys have like a really interesting, like inspiring kind of life. And so I think like sometimes it might be like, I'm really proud about it. And I'm like just excited to explain that there's this really great family structure you've set up. But like most people, don't need to know that information. So I don't think I'm often like explaining anything. B, maybe it's somebody who knows enough about you to ask something about your relationship status. And then I just explain it. It just takes a few sentences. And I've never had anybody say anything but like, oh, that's so great, or that's really awesome, or something. So, yeah.
I mean, my brother mentions at the end of our call, I don't talk to bigots. Like, I'm from the South. They live in the South. It's hard not to talk to a bigot.
It's also hard not to talk to bigots in Massachusetts. Just putting it
it's like, that does mean something. I don't talk to bigots. It does mean something.
I just say it like I'm saying a thing because it's just, this is what it is. It's not, I'm not asking for your permission. I'm not asking for your opinion. I don't care what your political or religious views. This has happened. This is fact. I've never heard anybody that they're confused, but there's been nobody that's ever had any kind of issue with that. But I don't talk to bigots, so that's my answer. They're not worth my time. I've got a gay daughter and a nephew that is from an unconventional home. I have no time to listen to your opinion about what they should be doing with their lives. You had an opportunity to live yours. Why don't we let them have an opportunity to live theirs? That's all I'm asking.
The best way to keep up with us is via our weekly newsletter, Emergency Contacts. Sign up via our website, vjandstevens.com, or at emergencycontacts.substack.com. VJ and Stevens is a creative consultancy founded by platonic life partners Amrita Vijayaraghavan and Andrew Stevens. Through their multi-platform range of projects, including film, live radio, podcasts, and experiential activations, their work celebrates the beauty of living authentically and building community with imagination and humor. Marina Weiss holds a doctorate in clinical psychology and a master's of fine arts in poetry. Her professional work and research interests center on providing trauma-informed care and on addressing mental health disparities through community-based participatory research methods. You can learn more about her at marinaweiss.com.
Bye, Kannan.
Bye.
Shall I leave meeting?
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Yes, leave meeting. Okay.
Adam, I love you. Thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it.
I love you all so very much. I would do anything for any of you at any time. So all you have to do is ask. You know that.
I'm about to go take Mom to the Aradhana.
Oh, nice.
And I'm going to get my legs waxed. That you can take off.
Oh, he's awake. He's awake right now. Actually, I can hear him in the other room. So I'm going to
Okay.
let you go.
Okay,
Are you going to the
sweetheart.
baseball game?
Yeah, I'm going to the baseball game.
Okay.
Looking
have
forward
fun.
to the only time I have hot dogs.
All right. Have fun.
Okay, sweetheart. Bye. Say hi to Andrew, though.
I will.
I love you. This
Oh,
was
I'm
great.
sorry that I got emotional, but I just feel very strongly about that whole, from our own lived experience and then past generations, I feel very strongly about that. I think we carry a lot inside our DNA and who we are, and I just marvel at it.
Enjoy your day. I love you.
All right. Love you too. Bye.
Bye.